Yo, what's up everybody? It's Toku from Yellowcard TCG, and we are here live over at my Twitch channel at It's Toku TV, and we are going to be recording a live deck profile for Battle Spirit Saga. Yes, I do a lot of the Japanese Battle Spirits, but I'm also going to be playing the English side with Battle Spirit Saga. And I'm going to be here to give you a first look into the deck that I plan to be bringing into tournaments for set 1, and that's going to be Red, Terra Dragons, and Emperor Beasts. Let's go ahead and get right into it. So presenting my Red Terra Dragon Emperor Beast deck. So coming right out of the gates of BS01, I believe that this is the best red deck to play. I personally love Sieg Nova myself. If you guys saw on Twitter, I advented Sieg Nova 3 times to heal 15. It's one of my favorite cards of the game, but unfortunately, the Saga side is a lot weaker than I had expected. A, it doesn't have 2 symbols, and B, not having its revival form in the Advent form yet is really holding it back. So I looked towards the next strongest, which ended up being stronger, and that was Jurassic King GigannoRex. This is our game plan. His entity is our game plan. To put this deck into a couple of words, it's board control and aggro at the same time. It's like, it's mid-range on the side of aggro. The faster we get GigannoRex out onto the board, the faster we get to pick at our opponent's board, attack into their spears, force them to block, and once they're out of resources, we can go for a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hit combo to end the game. So just to remind everyone, GigannoRex, when summoning it from hand, you may count each symbol on your Pterosaur or Emperor Beast spears on the field as 2 symbols when calculating cost reduction. So it's 8 cost 6 red reduction, but with only 3 Terras or Emperors on the Beast, it actually becomes an 8 cost 3 reduction for free, if that makes sense. So basically, having 3 of your weenies onto the field gets you full reduction. It becomes 2 costs to come out on the board, and its main draw, not really draw, but its strongest effects is this level 1, 2, 3 effect that says, if you are playing this archetype of deck, treat this spirit as level 3. So, even with 1 core on it, it becomes a 10k attacker, becomes 13k because of its on attack effect, and also has Confront, which forces your opponent to block into it. Now, normally in the mid game, in the early game, if you are able to get GigannoRex out early, you're going to be taking out a lot of your opponent's spirits. Now, that's basically how the game plan looks to go. You have your GigannoRex, and this is basically your engine, your finisher, your aggro mid-game all-in-one package. So you want to be able to find GigannoRex as consistently as possible. How do we do that? So obviously, the good thing about Red is we're on color with one of the strongest generic cards in the game right now, and that's Star Blast Draw. On the Japanese side of the game, we call this Burst Draw. But it has burst timing when your opponent resolves the spirits when summoned effect, draw 2, then you can pay the card's cost, which is 4 minus 2 red reduction, which playing red and the number of nexuses I decided to run will always be able to do. So eventually this becomes a burst, pay, draw 2, pay 2, draw 2 more. So draw 4, we're definitely going to happily find our GigannoRexes by then. Speaking of nexuses, we run a total of 10 nexuses. We're running the starter deck Red Nexus Scorched Battlefield. Level 1, 2, during your attack step, all your red spirits gain 1k. This 1k means a lot. This 1k pushes a lot of the spirits I chose to run outside of that 3k, 5k, 6k threshold on a lot of destruction spells, forcing your opponent to expend a little bit more resources to remove your stuff. But more importantly, it has a level 2 effect. During your attack step, draw a card when you reduce your opponent's life. This does not say does not stack, so if you have 2 of these out on the board, both at level 2, rare as it may be, you have to draw 2 cards each time you hit your opponent. Most of the time though, you're happy with just having 1 at level 2 and everything else there just to have a symbol on board, provide draw source if it comes down to it. The other 2 nexuses we run Volcanic Canyon at 4. This also, although not really plussing, goes through your deck faster. Because Battle Spirit Saga runs on 50 cards with 4 card limits, you want to be able to see through most of your deck faster. So you need to be playing a bit more consistently cards that up your consistency. So whereas Scorched Battlefield gave you power as its initial effect, Volcanic Canyon makes your draw step stronger. You get to see more of your cards, you get to discard your weaker cards, but basically, you get to go through your deck faster. That's why we like Volcanic Canyon. Finally, the last one we run. 2 copies of Sacred Thundering Peaks. We run it for its second effect. During your attack step, when one of your spirits confront attacks first during your turn, that's going to be our GigannoRex. It is refreshed. So we get 2 swing with the GigannoRex. The first one becomes 13k with confront. The second one becomes 16k with confront, because its on attack effects will happen twice. Between those 2 attacks, you'll be able to knock out 2 of your opponent's spirits, open the board for your weenies to get in, and that's going to be our game plan. Knock out the strong attacks with GigannoRex and have our weenies swing in for game. But Sacred Thunder Peaks also has a really good resource building, hand building effect in its first level 1-2 effect during your attack step. When one of your spirits is destroyed via comparing BP with one of your opponent's spirits, so when you lose battle, select a spirit that costs less than the destroyed spirit from your trash and return to your hand. So what you can actually do is, if you need hand, you have like your Sacred Thundering Peaks out on board, if you have 2 out on board, and you have Overraptidons in trash. Overraptidons, it's only 1 cost. These are going to be the spirits that you usually pick up with Sacred Thundering Peaks. Any of your other spirits, be it this one, be it this one, if you crash these into like one of your opponent's stronger blockers before you go with the GigannoRex, you can pick these up for discard fodder, summon fodder. Yeah, just like what Lord says, it's good synergy with the Canyon. You draw for turn, draw, you can discard an Overraptidon. That way you have Overraptidon as target for Sacred Thundering Peak. So a little bit of synergy there that I really liked after seeing Sacred Thundering Peaks. With the foundation, with the top end established, let's take a look into the early mid game. So obviously, MVP of the deck, Overraptidon. 1 cost, 1 rare reduction. This card is free. It has no effects, but it's free. It's a pterosaur, so it counts as 2 symbols towards GigannoRex. You find 3 Overraptidons easy, slam them down on the board, no cost, use their cores for GigannoRex, you're good to go. Here's another card that I like, that I did not see in a lot of other people's lists. Dilophosa. 3 cost, 2 red reduction. For some reason, it's Emperor Beast. I think we can all agree that this should be a Terra Dragon, but level 1-2, during your opponent's attack step, this spirit cannot block your opponent's spirits. Big whoop. This is an attacker. Level 1, 4k? That's fucking huge. I don't care if I can't block, because most of the times I'm just going to be swinging in with this. If it's rested, it can't block anyway, so there's no real demerit on Dilophosa. This is part of our aggression engine, and I really like this for this effect. You want to force your opponent to block this one because it can't block anyways. If they block it, cool, you get value out of Sacred Thundering Peaks. If not, cool, you dealt the damage. Speaking of dealing damage, here's another part of our early aggression game. Corner Flame Ride. Level 2-3, so at least 3 cores unfortunately. While this spirit attacks, draw a card when you reduce your opponent's life with this spirit's attack. So this is more of an early game card. It acts almost like an upstart goblin, just cycles itself out if you see it early enough to get in early. Cycles itself out, deals a quick damage, but more importantly, it's cost 2. And that means it costs more than 1. Which means you can pick Overraptidon up with Sacred Thundering Peaks. There are worlds where after like actual being able to really play test in paper, play against every other kind of deck, I might actually want to play like 3 or 4 copies of Sacred Thundering Peaks. Like having the engine of being able to pick up all of your Overraptidons turn after turn after turn by crashing your smaller things in is something that really speaks out to me about this deck. So we're running a vanilla here in Bearded Eagle, 4 copies. Of all the Emperor Beasts, of all the Terra Dragons that I saw that were vanillas, Bearded Eagle spoke out to me the most because it hits level 2, 5k at 2 cores. The other option, I believe, in Gaston, hit level 2 at 3 cores. So not only is this 1 core extra to maintain at level 2, if I don't have 4 symbols on board, it also costs another symbol to play. So I felt that Bearded Eagle, in conjunction with the Scorched Battlefields that I have, in conjunction with Volcanic Canyons, was already going to be big enough as a vanilla at level 2 with only 2 cores. Now here's a card that I love. I love Dynamant Tyrannoid. 3 cost, 2 red reduction, level 1, 2, 3. Treat this spirit as a level 3 spirit if you only have 2 or fewer spirits on your field. So, early game, 6k attacker. Early game, 6k blocker. This bridges you from early to mid to late, because this is just an overstated spirit that you can get out super early. Get aggressive with this, get aggressive on the defense with this. You can do some crazy power tricks as well. If you block with this, while you have maybe 3 spirits on your field, but then you use one of your flash timings to self-deplete your other 2, it becomes one of your only 2 spirits on field. All of a sudden, you've gone from 2k to 6k. So Tyrannoid, I believe, will catch people off guard just based on how strong it is. Now we're gonna go into some off-engine stuff. I play 2 copies of Cytosaurus. Is it a Pterosaur? 4 cost 2 red reduction. When this spirit attacks, reveal the top card of your deck. If it is a Pterosaur spirit card, add it to your hand. If not, return it to your top. So our entire deck is not Pterosaur. And because of that, Centaurosaurus won't hit all the time, but it'll hit some of the time. It's also a Pterosaur, so it plays into the strategy. Also gets kind of naturally big because of its when the spirit attacks effect at level 3, at level 2 with the 3 cores. But I want to treat this more as like a 5th to 6th copy of GigannoRex. Sometimes we find GigannoRex off the top, sometimes we don't. It's just an early attacker that can sometimes replace itself. That's why it's only at 2. This is a singleton copy, Raging DINOSAUR. A lot harder to get out than GigannoRex, but it also has Confront. So in the same sense that Centaurosaurus was a 5th to 6th copy to try and find a GigannoRex, I like to treat DINOSAUR as a 5th copy of GigannoRex on the board. If you can get this out early enough, you can still also do the double Confront swings and try and pick at your opponent's board. Obviously not as big as GigannoRex. However, it can still bridge you to the point where you can find GigannoRex. And to do that, we run one copy of Blazing Boar. So Blazing Boar is a 4 cost 1 reduction, very heavy costed. However, this is our 5th to 6th to 7th to 8th copy of GigannoRex. So when summoned, select a red spirit card from your trash and return to your hand. So in the world where GigannoRex does lose out in battle, like maybe like you just end up not having enough cores to leave it. Maybe you accidentally have a non-Pterosaur Emperor Beast on the board and you're accidentally only at 5k. When GigannoRex loses in battle, you can use Sacred Thundering Peaks to pick up Blazing Boar from the trash. Then on the turn after, you can summon Blazing Boar to pick up GigannoRex. And with that, you're back into your cycle. Yes, it does cost 3 up front. However, because of how important it is to get GigannoRex into rotation again, I think it's fine as a 1 copy. It's also on trade as an Emperor Beast, so this does act as a double symbol towards the next GigannoRex that you play. Finally, into the non-on-color staple cards. So we've already talked about Starblast Draw, but I'm also running 2 copies of Burning Force. So as I said before, this deck's main game plan is to pick at your opponent's spirits. Remove their symbols off the board, make it harder for them to get into their mid-game, get into their late game. However, Nexuses are strong. That's why we run Burning Force. We're only running 2 copies because our main game plan is to attack with spirits, but Burning Force is also able to hit at their Nexuses, get them off the board, also another way of removing cards off of your opponent's board. Also has a really good flash timing to pop 2 3k or less spirits. If your opponent does play into that spirit, that like very horizontal strategy, Burning Force is also a good way to get rid of those. Then obviously we've got the Absolute Ice Shield. Burst Wall, Zekko Hyojin. Everybody knows this card now. This card is very strong. It's going to be a staple in every deck. Get used to seeing this. Get used to playing around it. When you lose Life Burst, place a core from your reserve into your life. So the Japanese side, you place a core from the Void into your life. Then you can play the card's cost to activate the flash effect to end the attack step when the battle ends. Very surprised to see this out of the gate at set 1, but I'm also happy about it. I think the sooner you get the Saga players adjusted to these really strong defensive cards, the more welcome they will be to seeing more and more of these, like Artemic Shields, Diamond Walls. The list goes on, but basically these like very strong stopgaps are common in Battle Spirits, and every deck will look to play a multitude of them, probably consisting to around 4 to 8 of your deck. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, only Absolute Ice Shield exists at the moment, so we're going to max out on this. Finally, the last card that we run at 2 copies, Deadly Balance. This is, bar none, the strongest removal spell in the game. If your opponent is playing a vertical deck, they lose to Deadly Balance. Why is that? You don't even need a spirit on board to resolve Deadly Balance. If you have one, cool. you traded your Oviraptor for maybe their own Sieg Nova. But basically, the way it works is that because of do as much as you possibly can, your opponent selects their spirit, you select one of your spirits if you don't, and you destroy both. If your opponent only has that one tower that they're sitting on and hopefully swinging on, maybe like a GigannoRex, they're forced to destroy it. So Deadly Balance is our ace in the hole spot removal. And that's pretty much the main deck. Let's go ahead and take a look at sideboard options now. So you might see that I have 32 cards in the sideboard right now. It's more to show you the options that you can have in your 15 cards rather than I'm running 32 cards in my sideboard. But off of the gates of BSS01, I'm expecting red to be strong, purple to be strong, and yellow to be strong. But that doesn't mean that I want to disrespect white. I also show respect to white by running Heavenblade Dragon Ryute. So, starting off from the top left, Divine Halberd Dragon Arc. So, yellow 2-cost aggro rush looks to shit out a lot of weenies that attempt to just hit you for 5-0 off of like the get-go by summoning 5 weenies and hitting for game. Getting a Divine Halberd Dragon Arc out early really does like alleviate you from that. It itself is not a Terror Dragon or an Emperor Beast, so it doesn't play into GigannoRex well, but it's a floodgate that you can sit behind while you collect more pieces so you don't accidentally die to 2-cost yellow rush. It also has the on-attack effect to spot remove a 2k or less, so while you're protected from 2k or less attacks, you're also preventing your opponent from maintaining a board of 2ks or less. Now, something more on-trade into Emperor Beast is Thunder Leon Z, or just Thunder Leon on this version of the game. When summoned, destroy all of your opponent's spirits with 2k or less BP. When destroyed effects are not triggered by this effect. So this plays well into purple, this plays well into yellow as well. You're able to basically Raigeki your opponent's board if they are playing that horizontal board, but also in purple, that does have a lot of when destroyed effects, you're able to prevent that from happening. Its level 3 effect, when the spirit attacks, draw a card, it won't come up. This is more for its on summon effect.
3D action game.
Yo, Dan Domanovsky, thanks for the follow. Recognize that name from the Discord, which you all should join. Link in the description down below. I also have another 2 copies of Burning Force. Like I said, maybe you're playing a game where their nexus are super important. Having extra copies of Burning Force after you see it, very important to spot remove. Similar thing if you're playing against a tower deck, something that makes a very strong vertical monster like the GigannoRex, the Nova. Deadly Balance is there to spot remove. You know what you can do that's like really fucking cool with Deadly Nova? I mean, with Deadly Balance. GigannoRex swing, confront. GigannoRex swing, confront. Swing with your Oviraptor. Deadly Balance your last card. Now here's another burst. This burst is very strong. Unfortunately, hard to fit slots into it. However, I think that this is a mandatory card to run versus purple. Purple does a lot of core shooting, so you want to be able to have an ample amount of cores on your spirits. And purple also has a lot of when summon effects. So what you can actually run is run 4 copies of Holy Elixir, 4 copies of Starblessed Draw, and you can constantly have bursts that happen turn after turn after turn after turn. Getting that extra 2 cores from the void into your trash, that's like skipping 2 turns worth of core steps. It gives you a lot of cores to play with, gives you a lot of cores to maintain your spirits, so you don't accidentally lose to random core shoot ones. Speaking of purple, here's another burst that we can run in our sideboard. Bloody Rain. Burst, when we lose life, your opponent cannot attack with a spirit during this turn unless they remove a core from it and place it into the reserve. You may then pay this card's cost to activate its flash effect, which you will never do. You mainly play it for the floodgate effect. Similarly, how Holy Elixir was good into purple, I think Bloody Rain is really good into yellow. Yellow that looks to go very wide with their board. A lot of like single core attackers. You take a life, you hit them with Bloody Rain, that ends their turn. This is basically our 5th to 8th copy of Absolute Ice Shield against those kind of decks. Similarly, Firewall plays a very similar role to Bloody Rain, but what's good about this is Firewall could be a cute, how do I say, Game 3 sideboard card. If your opponent's walked into Bloody Rain once, they probably won't walk into it again in Game 3. That's when you go Firewall. So, a lot of the 2-costed spirits, even with 2 cores on it, probably will not reach 4k. And that's where Firewall comes in big. So, between Bloody Rain and Firewall, you have 2 different 5th to 8th copy of burst walls to run based on how you read your opponent to respect your burst going into game 2, going to game 3. Now, similarly to respect purple, you can also run Head Ice Made Fulla. So Head Ice Made Fulla is a white card, but it only costs 3, so it's not a heavy cost to pay in the early game, especially going into purple. Now, purple, their effects like to touch cores a lot, but Head Ice Made Fulla ignores that. So because Head Ice Made Fulla ignores that, it protects itself and another spirit with a soul core on it. Now, obviously, your GigannoRex won't be level 3 anymore if you have an Ice Princess on the board. But if you just sit with Ice Made Fulla and GigannoRex at level 2 or level 3 with the soul core on it, it's protected from purple effects until you're ready to go into your main game end board. So, similarly to how Divine Halberd Dragon Arc was a stopgap to get you from the early to mid to late game against yellow, Head Ice Made Fulla will be that stopgap to help get you from early to mid to late game against purple. Then finally, the last tech option I decided that I could run in my sideboard, and that's Heaven Blade Dragon Ryute. Level 1, 2, 3, cores that will be placed into either player's life are placed on the spirits instead. So against your opponent's Absolute Ice Wall, you get to steal their cores. But main thing to run for this is this level 2-3 effect that says your spirits cannot be returned to your hand or deck by your opponent's effects. So white has a lot of bouncing. We don't like being bounced, because naturally in the early mid game, we don't have a lot of spirits out until we decide to like really shit out those Abu Raptors. So having Ryute there to kind of like soft protect our spirits from being bounced, it is a heavy cost, don't get me twisted. 4 costs to play it, 3 costs to maintain a level 2. But against white, which is just naturally slower, you should have the time to get Ryute out. And that about wraps up the video. What did you guys think about my Red Terra Dragon deck profile for BSS 01 going into the very first format for the game? It's something I'm very confident in. It's something that I'm definitely sure will take people by storm. I think a lot of people are sleeping on GigannoRex. I do know some people respect the card, but Signova is a mascot card, and I'm pretty sure that's what people look towards. Big Bang Energy, as anime as a card it is, probably does not fare well into the current upcoming meta. And basically, I wanted to kind of like look at what kind of decks do I predict people to play, and what kind of decks can I play to kind of counteract that, and that came up with Red Terra Dragons. In any case, that's it from me for this episode of Yellow Card TCG, Battle Spirit Saga deck profile. Let me know down in the comments below what you liked about the deck, what you didn't like. Maybe there's some tech options I didn't think of that you guys would love to share with me. Also, let me know if you want me to do some other deck profiles for other colors that I've been thinking of. Yellow is definitely another color I've been looking at. Namesake Yellow Card TCG. Purple as well is something I'm very much interested in. I think the Blood Curse mechanic is very cool, and I want to be able to explore that a bit more. So if you guys are interested in that, do let me know down in the comments below. But from that, that's going to be it for this video, and I will see you guys next time.